I am so happy to have Karen Gunton from the Lighthouse Revolution here today. We've actually had Karen speak before, but to be honest, I'd probably have her speak every month if I could because she's so great. And the reason I really wanted to have Karen speak again today is she's just done the most gutsy, courageous thing that I think anyone can do, which is walk away from a business that is going fantastically and has a great name for itself, and she's followed her passion and you know what really makes her happy, and that's a Lighthouse Revolution, and that's what she's going to be talking us to today. And I just know that we're going to walk over some great tips and feel hugely motivated after the session. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Karen, and welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me, Ali. It's always fun to chat with you, and you're so good to me. Thank you.
Thanks, darling.
As Ali said, I've had a big shift this year in my business, but it's actually not the first time that I've shifted gears. So my business journey, I bet, is like so many of you who are listening. It's kind of this roundabout thing that has lots of twists and turns and ups and downs. And I actually started out my journey as a high school science teacher, which, of course, is nothing at all like what I'm doing right now, though I'm still absolutely a teacher. And that's why I have no regrets about any of the choices I've made, because everything's led me exactly to where I am right now. So I started out as a high school science teacher, and then I moved from Canada over to Australia. And when I did that, I didn't want to go back to teaching in the classroom. But I was longing, you know, for something else, something that was my own. And I clearly was longing to get back into a space where I was teaching and learning again. And I sort of stumbled upon accidentally starting a photography business. And that's how I began studying business. That really became my full-time job. The photography business was a little part-time thing on the side, and studying and learning business became my full-time job. And of course, that was the teacher in me that tackled it like any other topic that I would need to learn about. And eventually I started a blog called Build a Little Biz, which would have been the last time that I was here speaking with Ali on a hangout. So Build a Little Biz grew from being a little blog on the side where I was talking about the things I was learning about business and trying to kind of take all these lessons about business and distill them down to something that made sense for a mom who was doing it at home, you know, from the kitchen table. And that's what Build a Little Biz started as. And eventually I got to a space where I stopped the photography and design business and focused on working with women in business. And I still did a lot of design and graphic design work. And I went into this space of learning about and teaching about visual marketing, which was really fantastic. And that's still a passion of mine, visual marketing. But you can see it's kind of been this winding pathway. And what happened, even though I had a very, very successful business, I felt was successful. I was doing work that I enjoyed, and I had good money coming in, and I was building my brand and my reputation. I still felt like there had to be something missing, because even though I was ticking all the boxes, I felt like so much of what we were talking about just felt so strategic, and it was missing some heart. And I also felt a bit like I was a crazed person constantly running to the next thing that I had to do, you know, to keep my business going. And around that time, I kind of was losing my mojo for all this work, and like I said, feeling kind of crazed and like I was never really getting a step ahead. And I was on Pinterest, and I came across a quote that says, "Lighthouses don't go running all over an island looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining." And that's a quote by Anne Lamott. And when I saw that, even just repeating the story, I get goosebumps, because I had this absolute aha moment where I saw that and I thought, oh, that is what I want. I want a business that just stands there shining. I don't want to be running all over looking for people to help and looking for people to buy my stuff and constantly searching for the next thing and constantly being on that treadmill. I wanted to just stand there shining and to really feel like I was doing work that was purposeful and lit me up from within, and that I was really connecting with people who truly wanted what I did. And I could picture businesses like that. And I began this journey of wondering, what does it mean to shine your light? And that was really good personally, because I got back to who I was and learned about myself and learned about the kind of work I wanted to do and what I felt I was here to do. In the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, he talks about your zone of genius. And that was a book that absolutely changed my perspective as well, as far as, who I am in the world. So if you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. That was definitely one that's helped me on this journey. Anyways, over the last couple of years, I've been on this journey of thinking about what it would mean to build a business that was like that lighthouse. And that was a very personal journey, and I continued on with Build a Little Biz for quite a long time, even as I was trying to work out all of that. And eventually, I had a friend actually say to me, you need to talk about what you're experiencing and what the lighthouse means to you, because I think that's a really powerful story. And so even though I was doing all this work in the visual marketing space, I'd actually started another business called Visual Marketing School. I was coaching women about branding and marketing, and I had all these things on the go, still running around looking for boats to save. I gave myself permission to talk about my own journey, and to talk about the lighthouse as a symbol, as it was for me, with the idea that maybe somebody else might connect to it. And I gave myself permission to be vulnerable and to talk about how hard it is sometimes, and to talk about these feelings I was having about there had to be something missing. I wanted something more to this business that I was building, something that felt really soulful and heart-centered and passion-based, And anyhow, I started to talk about the lighthouse as a symbol. And what surprised me, what I wasn't expecting, was how much that resonated with people. And the first post I wrote about the lighthouse as a symbol went viral, and I had the most amazing comments from people about what that symbol brought up for them. And what that did was it made me start to think about all of the different things that we could learn from the lighthouse as a symbol. And so I spent quite a lot of time exploring that and actually modeling the business that I wanted to build based on the lessons from the lighthouse. And that has turned into what I call the lighthouse revolution. And I actually ended up, and what Ali was referring to is this year, I ended up shutting down my beautiful Build a Little Biz and focusing on building a personal brand at KarenGunton.com and really closing down all that work that I've been doing before and moving it over to this idea of the lighthouse revolution. So I'm still absolutely teaching about marketing and branding. I still work really deeply with women in business. I have a program that I do with them called Illuminate. But underlying those lessons around the strategy and the branding and the marketing and the way that we build our business, there's all this other stuff that we also need to work on. And that's really what the Lighthouse Revolution is about. And what I encourage people is to not just build a business and to build a lighthouse instead. So if you see behind me my chalkboard, this is on the wall of my office. So I'm reminded of this work that I'm here to do every single day. And what I've realized is that for us in business, what we focus on really is the structure, the vehicle that allows us to do business and sell what we sell. So this is like our business model. This is, our pricing and our products that we sell, and all of the way that we do business, basically. And most of us have that part. That's the part we focus on. And the difference between that structure and the lighthouse, as you can see, is the lighthouse has a lot more to it. And what I felt was missing before is that, people would say to me, oh, you just got to build your mindset. And I'd be thinking, I know that, but how does one do that? And what I've realized now is that you have to build these other parts of the lighthouse in order to really make your business shine bright and stand tall and stand out on the landscape. So the lighthouse is really a beautiful symbol of all the work we have to do, and not just focusing on that structure of our business, but focusing on all of the parts of it. So I wanted to actually go through the parts with you today, because I think there'll probably be something in there that resonates with everybody, some little piece of the puzzle that might just click into place. So the first thing that I always encourage my ladies that I work with to do is to get back to themselves. So most of us actually start with our own light. We do something, that lights us up, that we're excited about, we're passionate about, we're talented, and someone says to us, oh, you should sell that, or you should help other people with that, or, you should teach people. And then suddenly we start to think about the business that we build. And that's where we really get stuck into the structure of our business. And what we need to do actually repeatedly is come back to ourselves and come back to our light. So to me, the light is you. The light in your lighthouse, in the structure, the vehicle that you are using to sell your product, is you. It starts with you. So this is where you need to be absolutely authentic. You need to be clear about your purpose and your why. You need to feel, that idea of feeling lit up from within, that authentic energy that you bring to your business. And I think we often have to come back to that stuff because we can lose sight of that. And the other thing is that we evolve. So it's good to come back to that stuff quite often and just check in with yourself. Is this still my purpose? Am I still very clear on my why? Am I doing stuff that lights me up? Am I in that zone of genius? So that's kind of what the light is all about. It's about you. The next component of the lighthouse is the idea of a lighthouse being a beacon to other boats. So it's about communication. It's a signal that you send out. So in business, this is really our branding, our marketing, our communication, the way that we share our message with those that want and need what we do. So this is something that we often will work on in our business. This is one of the parts that most of us do work on. But the thing about the lighthouse is it reminds us again that that authenticity is really important. So it's much easier to beam your message out if you have that light, you have that fuel that's driving you. So that's why you have to get back to yourself and be really passionate about what it is you do. And Gabby Bernstein has this great message that she says, when you are moved by your message will move the masses. So that's, I think, the beauty of that idea of authenticity. When you're passionate about what you do, when you get your message to that space where you feel like you're almost on a mission, you're not just selling something, but you're on a mission, that's where you can kind of beam the message out. The beacon also reminds us, I believe, that we're talking to a certain kind of person. We're talking to an ideal customer. And I always think of the idea that, all the boats out in the harbor don't necessarily need your lighthouse. Some of them don't even care about your lighthouse. So you focus on your boats and you focus on getting your message to them. And every time you do anything, even if it's, posting a photo on Instagram, you concentrate on the people who need that light that you're shining out. And I think it really switches that mindset around the work that we do with our branding and communication. When you think about, the fact that you're just getting your message out to that one other person, it really makes it a lot more genuine and authentic, and that true sense of connection, I think. So that's what the beacon reminds us of. The third component of the lighthouse is the tower, which I mentioned. This is your structure, and this is like the vehicle that allows you to shine your light and get your message out to the world. So in business, this is about our business model, our products, our pricing, our boundaries, the way that we make a decision. Yes, I'll do this, and no, I won't do that. The things we focus our attention on. And again, a lot of us are working on those things, those strategies that will allow us to earn money and to be of service to others. But again, I think what the lighthouse reminds us of is when we think of this vehicle, when we think of this structure as being the tall lighthouse, it reminds us about alignment, that the business you're building has to fit you. It has to fit your strengths. It has to fit your values. It has to fit who you are in the world and the kind of people that you actually want to connect with. And this is very common, but so many of us end up putting all this stuff in our structure because we feel like we should, because someone told us to, because we read it in a book somewhere, or because we did it last year and now we feel like we got to keep on doing it. So what we end up with is this structure that feels really wobbly, and it doesn't have that strong integrity. And so what we want to do is actually go through our structure, go through our lighthouse tower, and say, is this of service to me? Is this serving my mission, my message? Is this serving my strengths and my purpose and my passion? Because if it's not, throw it out the window. You need to build your business your way so that it's in alignment with you and it leverages your strengths. And I think simplicity is a big part of that too. Again, we get all that stuff in there that we kind of compile over the years, and we can actually go through and give ourselves permission to say, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to say no to that. I'm going to say yes to that. I'm going to throw that out. I'm going to tweak this because I think it can serve me if I just change it a little bit so that it suits me more. So give yourself permission to build your business, one that leverages you and that integrity is strong and serves you. So that's the third part of the lighthouse, which is the tower. The The fourth part, of course, is that strong foundation. And what that symbolizes is building your mindset, building the strengths and characteristics that you need that will support the work that you're doing. Because here's the thing. Just because you start putting your message out to the world, just because you start selling the thing that you're really excited about, you might be shining your light bright, but that foundation stuff, that mindset, that confidence, that certainty and belief and worthiness doesn't magically appear just because you started your business. And that was a big shock to me. Everyone kept saying, oh, well, you just have to have that. I was like, but how? How does one just automatically, have worthiness or value in their product? So what you actually need to do is build those things just as you would build anything else. Just as you would build your email list, you need to build your foundation. And the really cool thing about your foundation is that you've already got building blocks there. You've got things that you're good at naturally. And you can probably tell this when you're having a conversation with other people about their business. If you're in a little mastermind group, for instance, somebody will say, oh, I've got this idea, but I've just been sitting on my desk for so long, and I've worked on it, but I just can't get it out there. And you're thinking, oh, dude, I have no problem putting that out there. I would just be like, here it is, people. It's ready for you. I wouldn't worry about it. So that right away shows a strength that you automatically have, and you can cement that into your foundation. Alternatively, if someone else is saying, oh, yeah, whatever, I just put it out there, and if it doesn't work out, I'll tweak it later, and you're thinking, oh, my gosh, I don't have the confidence to do that, but if people didn't like it, then that tells you something right there that you could be building to serve you, to better help you to get your message out to the world. So just as you would build anything else in your business, you also need to be building you. You need to be building your strength and your confidence and your certainty and belief in what you're doing, that sense of worthiness, whatever little pieces of the foundation, whatever little building blocks you need, you can build those as well at the same time. And as you do, as you build you, your business is being built at the same time. And as you build your business, you're building yourself as well, which is really cool. So then the last part of the fifth component of the lighthouse, you can just see at the bottom there, is the spiral staircase. And I have to say this is my most favorite symbol that I've learned from the lighthouse. If you think about a lighthouse and you imagine having to climb to the top, there's not a ladder inside that takes you straight up to the top. That would be absolutely impossible to climb. Instead, there's this spiral staircase that slowly takes you closer to the top, closer to your light. And I think that's such a powerful symbol for so many reasons because, one, it reminds us that we can just take one little step at a time. And for every little step that we take, the next appears. You can't see the whole path at once. And another thing is, when you feel like you're just going in circles and you're not really getting anywhere? You're not, because it's actually a spiral. You are getting somewhere. You are. And so you just have to keep on going. And to me, the staircase really symbolizes the journey that we are each on and that we need to just keep on going. And it also reminds us that there's absolutely going to be stuff on that journey that gets us stuck. There's absolutely going to be stuff that gets us stuck. And that's because that's part of our job as well, to deal with that stuff and get unstuck and keep on going. And just like with the foundation, there are certain things that will get you stuck that might not get, your mentor or your peer stuck, or your husband or anyone else who's supporting you. So you kind of have to know yourself. And you can start to even predict things. As you make your plans to put your message out to the world, you can automatically think, what's going to leave me feeling stuck? I know I'm going to get afraid that people don't like me because that always happens to me. Right away, that's going to happen. And so you can start planning stuff right now of how you're going to deal with that, how you're going to get unstuck. And what triggers you and gets you feeling stuck is going to be different from other people. But the idea is just to know it's going to happen and know that's just part of the journey. I actually think that, us crazy women in business, we choose this journey. We choose to build a business because it gets us closer to who we are in the world and closer to our soul's purpose. And we choose it because we're actually supposed to grow and evolve on this journey. We are supposed to grow as people and learn how to deal with stuff. So when the next thing that comes up to get you stuck, just remember it's just part of that spiral staircase. It's part of that journey, and it's your job to say, all right, I knew this was going to happen, and I'm ready. I'm ready to move through this, to push through this, and to take another step anyways, even if there's fear, even if there's uncertainty, even if you're feeling a bit dejected about things, even if you're, busy comparing yourself to others. There's lots of things that can get us stuck. Just be aware it's going to happen and be ready for it. And when it happens, do anything you can to move past it. And that's what the spiral staircase is here to remind us of. So that's a very quick introduction to the 5 components of the lighthouse. And really the main message is that if you start to think about the business that you're building with all 5 components, then I believe that you'll build a business that feels much more aligned to who you are. And you also will be less likely to get stuck and give up because you're working on all 5 of these things at one time instead of just one of them, which is the real businessy stuff. What do you think, Ali?
Great. I've got some questions for you. But I also just wanted to remind people, because obviously people have been getting on, that they can ask a question themselves. So if you're in Google Hangout, you can ask it in the Q&A section, or in the email, we sent you a second link. So if you click on that one, you can also ask questions in there. So if you're having trouble finding Q&A, then just click on the other link and ask questions in there. And I'll ask a few questions of Karen, and then I'll check and see if anyone else has asked any as well.
Perfect.
So first of all, the first thing I was going to say is that for a lot of people in business who might be struggling, they're probably sitting here listening to you thinking, oh my God, how enlightened she is, and how far she's come. But I'd love for you to sort of just let people know how long it actually took you to get to this, because I think sometimes when you put it in context, people go, oh, okay, so I'm not as bad as what I thought, because it actually took Karen X number of years to get to this point and this many evolutions and stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I started out with my first online business, my photography business, almost 8 years ago, exactly 8 years ago. So that has been how long that I've been working on building business, learning about business, building my own mindset, learning all the different kinds of strategies and what works and what doesn't work. And like most people, I just started out really with the businessy stuff. Like I was constantly just trying to understand branding and marketing and selling and a business model and a business plan. So I definitely started, like most people do, on trying to figure out the strategy so that I could get what I was doing out and earn some money doing it. So it wasn't really until I was further along the journey and I could see that even though I was ticking all the boxes and doing what everybody says to do, that sometimes things just didn't work. It didn't make sense to me that, someone else could be doing that exact thing and it just takes off like, rocket beams. And I'm like, why is it not making an impact? So it's definitely been that spiral of going around and tweaking and trying and learning. And really it wasn't until I was inspired by the Lighthouse and realizing I've actually, got to work on some other stuff as well. So what made a huge difference to me right from that phase of the focusing on the strategy and ticking the boxes was getting back to myself, that inner light. So that's absolutely what I recommend anybody does, because, depending on whether you've been doing this for 6 months or 6 years, you have evolved and you've already started to travel away from what kind of got you started in the first place. So you've got to come back to that. So that was a big thing for me, just that idea of what's my spark? What are my strengths? What am I here to offer? What do I really, really want to do? What is my dream for myself? What's the vision I have for my future with this? So going back to all of that then made a huge difference, because even before I started the Lighthouse Revolution, when I was helping women with their branding and marketing, I was able to connect with them in such a powerful way. The branding and the marketing was better, and my structure was better. So that definitely made a big difference. And then this actual Lighthouse Revolution, and I know a lot of people will say, oh, this is a really cool symbol. I would love to find something like that in my business. Again, that's evolved as well. So the first time I was inspired by this quote was like 3 years ago now. So that was a long time, from being inspired by the quote and thinking about, what it means to shine your light, to then looking at it, about 18 months later to see what else I could learn from the Lighthouse, and to talking about it. I spent most of last year talking about it on my Build a Little Biz blog, and then decided at the beginning of this year to make it the Lighthouse Revolution under my own name. So it's definitely been an evolution, a long process. If anybody's feeling like, oh my gosh, I'd love to find that thing that, I can talk about that really clicks for people, the biggest advice I have is to keep talking. And if you can allow yourself to share your stories and to allow that vulnerability in and share who you are in the world, and talk about what inspires this journey for you. As I said, get moved by your message, whether that's by being, passionate, or being emotional, or by being angry, or just by being curious. There's lots of ways that you can be moved by your message, but if you allow yourself to show that, that's where things will click. And that's what happened for me for the Lighthouse. It was only when I started to tell my stories that I could, and in a really vulnerable way that moved me myself, that I saw that it clicked. And then I was like, oh, interesting. I didn't expect it to resonate in that way. And so then I was able to build on from that. So, yeah, keep on telling your stories and keep on searching for that authenticity and that vulnerability in what you do.
And you talked about, like, the building blocks and building things like mindset and confidence. What are some different ideas or ways that you've come across? Like, because you said, like, these are things that you also need to build and learn, like anything else in your business. So what might be some different things people might access or do to try and work on those things that are like their personal challenges?
So this was one that I found really tough, because I had this moment, where I can actually remember seeing a little visual marketing quote image, somebody talking about how important the whole idea of that entrepreneurial mindset, and you've got to have it, and it makes all the difference, blah blah blah. The most successful entrepreneurs have these qualities. And I remember just feeling so frustrated, like how does one build that? And being, really kind of annoyed, because there's not like a one simple manual, right, that tells you how to build those things. And I think that's because they are so personal. But one thing that I noticed is once I had it in my head that I actually had to purposely build that as well, some different tools and strategies started to pop up in my vision. So even just, if you're knowing that one of the things that you need to build in yourself is, say, a strong sense of worthiness, then, just put it out there, like, okay, I get it. I need to build my worthiness. In order to put this message out to the world, I have to feel worthy of sending this message. So I'm ready. Give it to me. And then just make note of things and people, that come in your way. And what I've done over the past couple of years is actually create a lot of little strategies that I have now in my Illuminate program. So little strategies, for building your confidence and building your feelings of worthiness, and building that sense of certainty in yourself. And so, for instance, I'll share one little strategy that I've tried, and I learned this from watching Tony Robbins' YouTube video, where he talks about, I was having trouble finding the name, where he talks about why some people take massive action and others don't. So I watched this thing, and the thing that came out to me was he was talking about this sense of belief in yourself and this sense of certainty. And I thought, it's so hard for us to picture that as though it's a done deal, picture that with absolute certainty that it's all perfect. And that's a really hard thing to be able to train your mind to do. And so what I started to do is what I call the certainty game. And I actually take a piece of paper. I've got these little sheets, like this is my to-do list right here, but I use the same kind of sheet. And what I'll do is I'll start in one box and just write down, this is my little strategy, I write down, what do I know for sure? And I'll just write down one thing that I'm certain about right now. So it could be as simple as, I'm really good at this. I'm certain about that. I'm certain that I know my shit and I'm good at this. Okay, so write that down. And then what happens? And go ahead a step as though it's a game board. I know this stuff well, and then what happens? That means that I can teach it in a way that makes, a click for people. And then what happens? The person who it clicks for is able to make that shift and get their message out to the world. And then what happens? They earn some more money, and they feel even more confident. And then what happens? And you just keep going ahead, starting with the thing that you know for sure, and building on it until now it's starting to feel a little less certain, because now you're getting to this point over here that's like massive success and earning tons of money. That's really hard to feel certain about when you're in a place over there where you're like, I just don't know if I can do this. So that's one little strategy that's worked for me. That's an example of one of the strategies I teach in my coaching program, is what we call the certainty game. So just starting with one thing that you know for sure, and just taking those little jumps and keep building on it, because that's a lot less scary. It doesn't trigger all your fear, and that, again, that sense of unworthiness if you start with what you know for sure. So that was just something that I came up with after watching Tony Robbins speak. So my suggestion is, as I said, if you put it out that that's what you're looking for, and see what comes in your path, and see what people recommend. Like, for instance, I recommended that book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. That was a big one for me to get into that sense of who I am and dealing with fear. So I learned little strategies from reading that particular book. Just recently, I know a lot of people have been reading Liz Gilbert's new book, The Big Magic, and that just came into my path exactly when I was struggling with some worthiness stuff, because I'm about to write a book, and I was having all of this, like, oh my God, who am I to write a book? And then a friend actually handed me that book, and I read it that Saturday, all in one day, and it was like, okay, I got this now. So I was able to just pick out little strategies from there that just helped me to get over all that stuck stuff that was happening in my head and keep going.
Beautiful. Now, I've got one last question. I haven't seen any questions come up yet, but my last question is that, I have a lot of mums, and even particularly someone I was just coaching the other day, who was saying to me that she's not a quitter and she doesn't give up. So she's not going, so she really doesn't want to give up on this particular business idea, even though she doesn't even really enjoy it anymore. And so I think sometimes there's a difference between continuing on just because you think you have to, or because you're not a quitter, and continuing on because it's just a rough patch, and you do need to persist in business to succeed as well. Like, it's not always going to be great. So I'm just wondering, like, what helped you decide, and how did you know that you needed to switch? What things did you think about so that maybe that can be helpful for other people who might be in a similar position where they're not sure whether to go or whether to stay?
Right. So that's such a good question, because I think that's part of that mindset stuff too. Like, we can take something that's, that we've identified ourselves as not a quitter, and we can use it as a bit of a crutch to say, well, I'm not going to move forward for that. And what happens then is you end up staying in this really safe, comfy place. So I think that this is where, again, I would say you have to go back to you. And with anybody that I coach, I always take them right back to themselves and their light and where they're at right now. And sometimes spending a bit of time in that space. And then when you look at all the other pieces, and then you can start to see, oh, okay, I'm really hanging on to this stuff. And it actually doesn't make logical sense. And another thing I often will say, and what I had to do for myself when I was feeling really stuck, I was at that exact place like you were saying. I didn't want to quit the whole build a little biz thing. I thought that's crazy. On paper it makes absolute sense to just keep going with that. On paper it makes sense I can still keep talking about this lighthouse stuff, but I can still keep doing all this other stuff. And I just felt super stuck. And I was absolutely using, my own tenacity and my own desire to keep pushing through as a bit of a crutch. And a big thing that happened to me when I was feeling absolutely stuck, I actually, it was so dumb, but I had this moment where I was like, okay, if I was helping someone else, what would I get them to do? And then, I would get them to go through those 5 parts of the lighthouse. And so I did that for myself. I got out a piece of paper, and I went through each thing, and I thought about who I am and what really lights me up and how I really want to be of service in the world. And then I looked at, what my message would be and what my structure would be. And I realized I was hanging on to all of that other stuff because it kept me in a place that was really safe and comfortable but small, and on the inside uncomfortable. You know, that feeling where there's something tapping you on the shoulder, like there's something else. You got to keep on pushing. And so that was a big thing for me, actually, just to take a blank piece of paper and say, if it wasn't for all of this other stuff that I've been doing and building and working on, blah, 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 if it wasn't for all of that stuff, if I just had a clean slate and I was starting today, what would I do? And I actually wrote a blog post about that. If I was starting today, what would I do? What would it look like? And that was big for me. If I could give myself permission to start over, what would that be? And so that picture that I created was so different from what I was living in, the structure I built for myself, that it was kind of jarring. I realized, okay, I have to just take the leap. And I knew from all of that work that I'd done that I had to make a change. And I'm not going to gloss over it and say that it was easy. It was not. Making that decision in my head was easy, but then acting on it was hard. And there were definitely been times where I wondered, was that the right thing to do? But as soon as that thought comes to my head, I know now that that's the fear speaking, and my heart and soul is like, yes. Even though, yeah, it was hard. Like, I had to start over with a brand new website that had no reach and no Google juice, no SEO. That was hard. I had to, I lost like a lot of followers and subscribers, but I've also gained so many more. And I try to focus on the stuff that I've gained. So even though the things I've done have been hard, they're in my head now. I look back to where I was. None of it's as hard as what that was. That was hard in the sense that it didn't feel good anymore. It didn't feel like me anymore. And I felt like I was pushing all of the time. And now I feel like my new vision pulls me. It's not pushing anymore. So even though some of the things have certainly been hard, nothing is as hard as that. That constant scrambling, that constant pushing, that tenacity. Don't give up, keep going. It doesn't make sense to quit it. So much of it depends on you being able to just be you. Be you. Know yourself. Be honest with yourself, even if you can't be honest with anyone else. Pretend that you're starting today and see if that gives you a bit of an idea. It is. And that's why I think, talking about this is so important, because if we only looked at this, what was on the paper, if we looked at the business and what makes sense and what's strategy and what's logic and, pushing through and not giving up and, spending more money here, doing more money there. If we only did that stuff, it would only get us so far. And what I think these other parts of the lighthouse is, they take us further. And they get to who we really are. And they give us permission. It gives us permission to say, you know what, maybe I might need to make a change. And as I mentioned, your business journey, I believe, is a reflection of your own personal journey, your soul's journey, who you are in the world. And so, as I mentioned, as you grow your business, you're growing you too. And so it makes sense that things will have to shift, because who you are shifts. And if you kind of accept that that's actually part of the journey that you're on, it kind of takes a bit of the weight off your shoulders. When you realize, maybe that was supposed to happen. Maybe that thing that I've been doing that I'm not so sure about anymore, maybe it actually had a purpose to bring me to here. That's what it was for. So no regret. It doesn't mean that you made a bad choice, or it doesn't mean you gave up or closed the door. Like, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like everything I've done up to now is absolutely valuable and worthwhile, because it brought me to where I am now. And I don't think for a second that where I am now is where I'm going to stay. I probably will shift again. And I don't know, the Lighthouse Revolution might become something totally different. It might not even exist anymore. I don't know. But I feel like as long as I keep taking those little steps and not just staying in that stuck spot, that small, safe spot, comfy spot, then I think I must be going in the right direction.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. Bit of feedback there. So just quickly, did you want to let everyone know, anything about your course or what you offer, and also how they can follow you?
Sure, thank you so much. So my site is KarenGunton.com, and if you pop over there, there's a spot to subscribe to the Lighthouse Revolution, and I've actually got new thing that I just created called the Lighthouse Oracle, which is really fun. And it's a print-it-yourself deck of oracle cards that are all messages from the lighthouse. And in that booklet, even if you don't end up printing out the deck, in that booklet that you get that has all the cards, it's got an explanation of those 5 components of the lighthouse as well. So even to have that and just to remind yourself of those things is really cool. And even if you just read through, the things that we talked about today are all on the card. So you can see maybe one of them will call to you and be like something, oh, that's something I definitely need to work on. Or you can put it up in your workspace and remind you of something you need to focus on. So that's something just brand new that I just launched this month is the Lighthouse Oracle. So I'd love it if anybody wanted to go and grab it and let me know what you think. We've been talking about them. I've got a community on Facebook called the Lighthouse Revolution. So if you give a search of #Lighthouse Revolution, you'll find it. You can pop in there and say hi. I would love to chat with you. And let me know if there is something about the lighthouse that really stood out to you, or if you have a question about your particular situation or the thing that has you feeling stuck. I'd love to help you apply some of the lighthouse lessons to see if we can work on getting unstuck. So that's my free community and some of the freebies I have. I've also got, as we mentioned earlier, a coaching program called Illuminate. That's very specific to women with businesses, women who are building, a personal brand or selling products, speakers and authors and teachers. We've got all sorts of different women in that group, and in that group, we're really working through all of the little strategies to build all the components. So we definitely work on the marketing and the branding and getting your message out there and getting clear on your message and all that stuff. But we also work on a lot of the mindset stuff, the fears we're dealing with, things like figuring out what our dreams are for ourselves and our vision for our business. So we have both components of the businessy stuff and then the self stuff as well. And then the last thing that I will mention that I have and that might interest people who have found this symbol of the lighthouse interesting is a program. It's an online workshop called Resonate. And what I've done for that is I've actually taken everybody through the steps of how the Lighthouse Revolution came about to start out as being something that just inspired me to becoming, this brand that really resonates deeply with people. And so I've walked basically that organic journey that I described here today. I've walked people through exactly what made a difference, what steps I took that made a difference and what didn't, and how to build a brand and tell a story and share a message that resonates. So we all hear, that storytelling is such a powerful tool for marketing and branding. But in this workshop, we actually work out what stories could you tell, how do they fit with your brand and your business, and then how can you use that to kind of create your own thing. Like I've created the lighthouse, what would be your thing, that thing that resonates? So it's a really cool workshop, and I've also done case studies. There's 5 case studies in there of other brands, not mine, that resonate deeply and how they've done that really well. So for instance, one of them is Denise Duffield Thomas's the Lucky Bitch. So her thing is money, and we dissected how she's created her whole brand to be known as the Money Blocks Lady. So that's a great example. And there's some other ones as well, including product-based businesses, not just service and expertise-based businesses. And I've even included a few case studies in there, which I think is fun, of brands that totally break all the rules, the way that I set them out in the workshop, and they resonate really powerfully. So that's kind of fun too. So the bottom line being that you get to build your business and your brand your way. So that's a really fun branding and marketing workshop that I think help anybody who wants to take what you've already got as far as your branding and marketing and kind of take it to that next level that really resonates deeply, so that you've got people, like I've got people that send me lighthouses all the time. These are some of the ones I've got recently. So, when you've got people sending you stuff because the message you send resonates so powerfully, I think that's really cool. So that's what we do in that workshop.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Karen. It was so fantastic having you. And I know that you were saying, when you go through things, people might pick up one little piece of the puzzle, might click. I think there's probably been clicks going on all over, and there will be in the next few days when people watch the replay as well, because it was just so good. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I love to talk about this journey, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share the Lighthouse message with your audience. And I do hope that anybody who's listening will pop over on Facebook to the Lighthouse Revolution community to say hi, because I genuinely do want to hear from you, and I would love to talk more about what your experiences are and where you're at right now. So do not hesitate. I'm not just saying that, to close us out. I really would love to hear from you, and love to hear how we might help to get somebody who's listening today unstuck with the thing that's got them stuck.
Perfect. And also, just quickly, everyone, don't forget that Mummy Mentoring Festival is running at the moment. You can put your bids in until November the 2nd, 10 p.m. And that's basically entering with a $4 bid to win a mentoring session with some of the most successful women in Australia, like Carolyn Cresswell from Carmen's and Beck Darrington from Source Bottle and Sue Ishmael from NADS. So fantastic mentoring session. I've got 37 mentors and 79 sessions donated, and half of the mentors haven't even been bid on yet. So plenty of opportunities to win a mentoring session for $4. And also, our last Google Hangout for the year in November is the 17th. It's actually with Jane Kay. She's the founder of Bird's Nest Online. If you're not following them, then you should be, only because they are really, really good at the branding and marketing and visual marketing and using Instagram, and they're great people to watch to pick up loads of good tips. But she'll be our guest on the November Hangout. And lastly, a big thank you to my Google Hangout gal, Anita, who organises these whole things for me. I actually just get on at 11 a.m. today and do the session, and she does the rest. So she sends out the emails for me, she coordinates the speakers, and yeah, makes my life infinitely easier. So if you need to know how to run a Google Hangout yourself, she can train you, or she can manage them for you herself. So thank you very much to Anita.
Welcome.
Right, thank you so much, guys. It was great having you, and hopefully we'll catch you in November. Bye.
Thanks for listening to me. If you think that you would love to know when my next video comes out, you can. Just subscribe here or here or here or down there or somewhere around here. You'll see the subscribe button. Hope to see you again. Bye.